Welcome to the Town Hall Presents PREformances with Allison Charney, Season of Hope. I'm Allison Charney, and in this series of concert and conversations with some of today's most sought-after classical musicians, I'll explore the theme of hope while offering PREformances' signature ungoogleable insights into the music we make. I can think of no more perfect partner in this exploration than the historic Town Hall, who sparked a new, more optimistic climate when it opened its doors 100 years ago. Together, in our pursuit of optimism, we will also address the existential question: if musicians are making music but there's no one there to hear it, have we really made music? My answer is not without you, our audience. By being here to listen, you, who are people from all walks of life who have come together here, even virtually, to engage in the arts, are playing a critical role in the experience we are going to share together. Thank you so much for joining me for this very special episode of PREformances Season of Hope, where I am going to focus on one individual performance from each of the episodes of the entire season as I explore together with you the lessons that I have learned, that I hope that you have learned throughout this remarkable experiment that you have enabled me to attempt. The first episode, which was my first experiment in this virtual platform, was with my dear and longtime friend, Benjamin Loeb, the brilliant pianist and conductor. And together we tried, for the first time for each of us, this notion of collaborating musically, making music in two different places over this virtual format. I hope it looks spontaneous, but we went back and forth over and over and over again. But if there were ever a song filled with the theme of this season of hope, this is it. I hope you'll enjoy Over the Rainbow by Harold Arlen, performed by me and pianist Benjamin Loeb. birds fly beyond the rainbow. Why, oh, why can't I? That was one of my all-time favorite songs from The Wizard of Oz, Over the Rainbow by Harold Arlen, performed by me and my dear friend, brilliant pianist, Benjamin Loeb. So in episode 2 of PREformances Season of Hope, I welcomed my friend, violinist Kelly Hall-Tompkins, and together we discussed hope and music and the times. And one of the pieces that we did that I'd love to show you today is Morgen by Strauss. And one of the things that Kelly and I both spent a lot of time thinking about is really the final chord of the piece, which is a second inversion chord. So let's just take a C major chord, since that's the easiest one to explain. That is made up of the notes C, E, and G. In root position, which is a grounded feeling of being at home, that C is on the very bottom. In first inversion, it moves and it goes, instead of C, E, G, it's now E, G, C. And in second inversion, the fifth scale degree is on the bottom. So it goes G, C, E, which means that that C, that root chord, is stuck and lost and floating in the middle. And what that gives you is a sense of real longing and wonderment. And as Kelly said in episode 2, celestial suspension, which I just love as an image. This piece, Morgen, is all about looking forward to tomorrow. I can think of no better sentiment than that. And so I hope you'll enjoy this performance of Richard Strauss's Morgen, performed by me, soprano Allison Charney, violinist Kelly Hall-Tompkins, and the official collaborative pianist of PREformances, Craig Ketter.
stummes Schweigen.
And that piece that I feel so lucky to get to sing with Kelly and Craig was Morgen by Richard Strauss. We now go to episode 3, which was a two-parter, 3A and 3B. These 2 episodes featured my trio, the Ark Trio, which is made up of me, cellist Kaisa William Olsen, and pianist Reiko Uchida. And together we talked about the new music that was written for us because for some inexplicable reason, the combination of soprano, cello, and piano appears to be really unique, if judged by the complete lack of repertoire for these 3 instruments together. We decided to form a trio because we really loved each other personally, and we also loved each other musically. But then it turned out there was just really nothing for us to play together. And so we approached some of our favorite composers to see if they might write something for us. And 2 of those composers joined us on episode 3. In episode 3A, we were joined by Michael Ching. And in episode 3B, we were joined by Kim Sherman. So I'm going to play for you now Michael Ching's piece called, it's called Die Forelle, based on the Schubert song of the same name, Die Forelle. And it comes from a larger cycle that Michael has written for us that is called Arrangements and Derangements, Interpretations of Schubert. And this piece is most definitely a derangement. And it starts with the way that Michael wrote the title of the song. Die Forelle, the trout, is spelled D-I-E, Forelle, F-O-R-E-L-L-E. D-I-E in German is just an article, but in English, D-I-E is die. And Michael has very sneakily written D-I-E in all caps. So it looks like to an English-speaking audience, Die Forelle. And it turns out that that is really what happens to the trout in this very famous tune, the Trout Song. And what Michael was trying to explore, he explained, was this breaking down of the barrier that happens when you really don't understand all the text that's whizzing by in a piece, particularly in a foreign language. And that because of that, you can sort of get away with skating over perhaps some of the underlying issues. And in this piece, Michael calls all of that into question. And so with no further ado, here is Die Forelle, performed by the Ark Trio, written by Michael Ching, based on a song by Franz Schubert.
In einem Büschlein hell, da schoss in froher Ei, die launische Forelle vor ihrem Weg empfang. Ich stand an dem Gestade und sah in süßer Ruhe des Mutterfischleins Bade im klaren Bächlein zu, des Mutterfischleins Bade im klaren Bächlein zu. It's a song about a trout. La 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 la, a song about a trout. The music is so bubbly, like water in a brook. It takes a nasty turn when you have a second look. The story turns quite dark when you understand the words. Sorry to wreck it for you, but here's the truth of it. A fisherman is not
And that song, an absolute favorite of my children, Die Forelle or Die Forelle from Arrangements and Derangements, Interpretations of Schubert by Michael Ching, was performed by the Ark Trio, who is now going to do for you this piece of Kim Sherman, also from a larger cycle. This is called Prairie Dawn, and it is from a larger work called Prairie Diary. And I have known this piece for a very long time. It was recomposed for the Ark Trio just recently, but it existed in another format before. And in my conversation in episode 3B of PREformances Season of Hope with Kim Sherman, the composer, she told me, which I had never really understood before, that this piece is meant to represent the sunrise. Which I guess if I really think about the title, Prairie Dawn, perhaps I should have understood. But I hope when you listen, you will hear the colors and sounds and smells and feelings of the beginning of a new day, and hopefully one filled with health and justice for all. And that beautiful song was from Kim Sherman's larger cycle, Prairie Diary. That was Prairie Dawn, performed by the Ark Trio. So we moved on from episode 3 to, not surprisingly, episode 4. I really got creative with the titles of these concerts and conversations. In episode 4, I welcomed Peter Seidenberg, the great cellist, along with Craig Ketter, who rejoined the fun. Anyway, Peter and I spent a lot of time talking about this new piece composed by New York City-based composer Marianna Rosett, who also happens to be my next door neighbor, my downstairs neighbor. This piece is called Kaddish, and it too is from a larger piece called Ghost Brothers. So Marianna composed this piece, which is an autobiographical piece. Marianna was born just after the Second World War to parents who had experienced unspeakable loss during the war. They had been married to other people. They had had other children, all of whom perished in the war. And they, like many others just like them, found each other immediately after the war ended and immediately got married and immediately started a new family for a real tragic do-over at life. And Marianna was one of these children born at that time. What Marianna experienced, which I understand is very similar to people in her same situation, born in Europe just after the war, was a home filled with joy and love and great hope, but also a home that was permeated by an unknowable, inexplicable sadness. It was only later in life that Marianna learned that she had in fact had a half-brother who had perished during the Holocaust. So this piece, Ghost brothers is her tribute to this idea of the sibling whom you didn't know, whom you might not have really even known about, and whom was never discussed, but who still plays such an important part in your life. So this piece, Kaddish, gets its name from the Jewish prayer that mourners say. And one of the pieces of this that I find incredibly meaningful for me, and the way Peter Seidenberg described it is he said that it was a sonic, subtle bridge to the past, which I just love, is the idea that in the Hebrew and Aramaic words that get used in this song that is mostly sung in English, there's the famous beginning of the Mourner's Kaddish, Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabbah. Now that pronunciation, Yiskadal v'yiskadash, is an old-fashioned pronunciation of Hebrew. A modern day Hebrew speaker would say Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash. You can hear that there's a T sound instead of a S sound. The composer and the librettist, Brooke Johnson, decided to set this in the older pronunciation of Hebrew. So that evokes for me the voice of my grandparents, not my own. And so it immediately links me in that chain, that long chain that stretches back for millennia to those who have gone before me. And so there's just that added level of connection that exists for me in this piece. I hope you enjoy it. This is Kaddish from Ghost Brothers by Marianna Rosett, performed by me, soprano Allison Charney, cellist Peter Seidenberg, and pianist Craig Ketter. And the entire episode on which this is featured is episode 4 from PREformances Season of Hope.
Rocking horse without a rider, mother with no one beside her, wash their hair, clean their faces, let them go to peaceful places. Rolling hope without a turner, teacher left without a learner. Wash their hair, clean their faces, let them go to peaceful places. See them playing in the lanes, by the lake, in the fields. See them playing in the clouds, laughing and dancing in the lanes, by the lake, in the fields, laughing and dancing in the clouds. rocking horse without a rider, mother with no one beside her, wash their hair, clean their faces, let them go to peaceful places. Say shalom bimromav, oh say shalom, Alleluia, Israel. Laughing and dancing in the lanes, by the lake in the fields, oh say shalom bimromav. They sing and dance for me, music of tranquility. Iskadal, Iskadash, they are always here beside me. Oh, say shalom,
And that piece was the Kaddish from Marianna Rosett's Ghost Brothers, performed by me, cellist Peter Seidenberg, and pianist Craig Ketter. I am so grateful for you for listening, for tuning in, for liking, for following, for commenting. Your views really matter. The next piece that I wanted to highlight for you from episode 5 of Season of Hope, the penultimate episode of the series, this featured the husband-wife team of violinist Eriko Sato and pianist David Wee. And I was really lucky that they let me crash their duo for 2 pieces, one of which we're going to do now. This is Brahms's most famous and most beloved Wiegenlied, the Lullaby. What piece could fit the theme of hope more than Brahms's Lullaby. I'm so grateful to Eriko Sato and David Wee for joining me in that performance. What can you continue to do to help me keep the music playing? You can continue to listen. If you've missed any of the episodes of Season of Hope, I hope you'll go back and check them out. In episode 6 of PREformances Season of Hope, I featured my friend and co-creator of the series Her Music, Her Story, pianist Donna Wang Friedman. And together we spoke at great length about music composed by women in celebration of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, which just celebrated its 100th anniversary, and also the 55th anniversary of the signing into law of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I really hope that you'll take a listen and a look at that episode, but I want to play for you now, which for me was perhaps the greatest highlight of the entire season. I've mentioned before how difficult it is to make music together with just one other person, which I did at the very beginning with Benjamin Loeb in episode 1. And then in episode 2, I got a little more daring and I made music with 2 people at a time when Kelly Hall-Tompkins and Craig Ketter and I did Morgen together. But by episode 6, I don't know what happened. I got really bold. And Donna and I together reached out to some of our friends, the best women artists we know, and we came up with an ensemble of a star-studded, unbelievable ensemble to perform what was the anthem of the women's suffrage movement, written by Ethel Smyth, The March of the Women. And before I show you this performance, I would like to take a moment to give credit where credit is due. This series would not have been possible without the editing and engineering and producing of Evan Epstein, my son. And Evan really knocked himself out with what you are about to see, this incredible performance that I can't wait for you to take a look and listen to. Without any further ado, here is March of the Women by Ethel Smyth, performed by Donna Wang Friedman, Sue Bay, Yuna Lee, Indira Mahajan, Lena Chinakis, Maria Zivchek, Christy Swan, and me, Allison Charney, put together by the incredible editing of Evan Epstein.
Shout, shout, on with your song, cry with the wing, for the dawn is breaking. March, march, sing you along, light blows a banner and hope is waking. Song with its story, dreams with their glory, lo they call, and glad is their word. Loud and louder it swells, thunder of freedom, the voice of the Lord.
What a thrill to have been a part of that amazing rendition of Ethel Smyth's The March of the Women. I hope you have enjoyed this trip down memory lane of PREformances Season of Hope with me. I have really gotten a kick out of revisiting some of these performances. I close every PREformances the same way, with Richard Strauss's 90-second long gem, Zueignung, a piece filled with dunk, with thanks, because I am always truly so overfilled with gratitude at this point in the program. I'd like to thank the Town Hall for hosting me and Season of Hope. I would like to thank the Friends of PREformances for their generosity and all of my featured guests for their brilliant artistry. This series would not be possible without the creative and technical input of Mele Araya, Lawrence Zucker, Jeff Mann, Nevin Steinberg, and Evan Epstein, who join me in offering special thanks to you, our PREformances Season of Hope audience, for giving us all a reason to keep the music playing. And now, Zueignung.
Ja, du weißt es, teure Seele, dass ich fern von dir mich wähle. Lebe macht die Herzen krank. Hab Dank. Einst hielt ich der Freiheit sicher, hoch den amethysten Becher, und du segnetest den Trank. Hab Dank. Und beschworst